What's up? What's happening? What's going on? Caleb's with the 2018 NBA season over. It's time to look back and look at what we were thankful of and what was really kind of boring and uneventful and predictable, because the entire season was kind of predictable. I'm Mike Cantalupo, and today we present every NBA team's biggest disappointment in 2018. The Atlanta Hawks, John Collins. Nobody really disappointed on Atlanta. We all knew that they would struggle all season long, and they did, but we'll put John Collins here. He was the 19th pick in last year's draft. He averaged just 10.5 points per game. He shot just like 340 from downtown. He'll definitely get better over time. There is promise, but we had to put somebody. Boston Celtics, Al Horford. Most Celtics players surpassed expectations this year. They were one win away from being in the NBA Finals. Al Horford made over $27 million last season. But that being said, he had fairly pedestrian numbers. Almost 13 points per game, 7 rebounds per game. He was very, very effective in the playoffs, though. That being said, was he $27 million worth in the playoffs? Not really. Many Celtics outperformed him throughout the entire season. Brooklyn Nets, DeMarre Carroll. He was traded from the Raptors last year, and there were plenty of draft picks attached to his deal, but he made $14.8 million from Brooklyn last season. He just had 13.5 points and 6.6 rebounds per game. The Nets needed way better results for that amount of money and those prospects. Charlotte Hornets, Nicholas Batum, 15.1 per game and 6.9 assists per game. Their career best, but they were in 2016. Then he had just 11.6 points per game this year. The rebounds and assist totals all went down. He shot just .415 from the field. He missed a couple games off of injury, and he did not build off of his career year.
Chicago Bulls, KRIS Dunn.
He's part of that all big Jimmy Butler blockbuster trade. He played just 52 games. He didn't really do much in an increased role. He was only 5th in scoring. They honestly had better options at point guard. Dunn couldn't step up during Levine's lengthy absence. Cleveland Cavaliers, Isaiah Thomas. He was the centerpiece of that Kyrie Irving blockbuster, but then a hip injury limited him to just 15 games with the Cavs, and then he allegedly blamed Kevin Young for the team's struggles during a meeting, so he was ultimately traded to the Lakers. They got Jordan Clarkson, Larry Nance in part of the return. The Irving trade was a disaster for the Cavaliers. LeBron and Kevin Love ended up being the only guys to show up throughout the year. Dallas Mavericks, Nerlens Noel. He rejected a $70 million deal from the Mavericks. He found absolutely no market, so he came back on a $4.2 million deal. He was limited to just 30 games, 4.4 points, and 5.6 rebounds per game. It cost himself a ton of money. He's never going to be the superstar that many people projected him to be. Denver Nuggets, EMMANUEL MUDIAY. He was the 7th pick by the Nuggets in 2015. He has double-digit points per game throughout his first 2 seasons, so you'd expect bigger things from him in the 2018 season. But he was used as a bench player, just 8.5 points per game. He shot .401 from the field. He was traded to the Knicks at the deadline, and he is a major bust on a rapidly improving Nuggets team. Probably good that they got rid of him. Detroit Pistons, no playoffs. The 2016-17 season was considered a write-off in Detroit. The East looks super weak this season, so this could have been their season. They got Avery Bradley in a trade with Boston. Blake Griffin was acquired at the trade deadline, but somehow they still finished 39-43 and missed the postseason by 4 games. Stan Van Gundy was ultimately fired, and they need to start making progress again. The Golden State Warriors not winning 74 games. Yeah, I guess this is a joke, but they won 73 games in 2016. Then they added Kevin Durant, and then they won the 2017 championship, right? So I guess every year they should just keep getting better, because we just know ultimately they're going to win the championship. Isn't that fun? Houston Rockets, Ryan Anderson. The guy made just under $20 million in 2018. He was supposed to form this kind of big three with Chris Paul and James Harden, but then he missed 16 games. He averaged just 9.3 points per game and 5 rebounds. He barely played at all during the playoffs. It was a huge contract that could ultimately cost them the chance to recruit LeBron. Indiana Pacers, Thaddeus Young. This was Thaddeus's worst scoring season since his rookie year. His three-point shooting dropped significantly. His field goal percentage was also way down. He made approximately like $13 million. No way good enough to warrant that salary. Los Angeles Clippers missing the playoffs. So they traded Chris Paul in the offseason, but they still had DeAndre Jordan and Lou Williams. They absolutely dominated. Tobias Harris also did really well. 19.3 points per game is really good. The Blake Griffin trade seemed to really help. They won 42 games, but their playoff streak is now over. The Clippers, not accustomed to that. The Los Angeles Lakers, Lonzo Ball. Now, before you get mad at me, all you big baller fans, I'm kind of more talking about Lonzo's three-point percentage shooting than anything else. Sure, he was averaging, 10-something points a game with about 7 assists per game. But he was drafted by the Lakers thinking that he was going to be a great three-point shooter. It didn't turn out that way. He started off terrible and then ended with just a three-point percentage just over 300. The Memphis Grizzlies, Chandler Parsons, $94 million contract, and it has been a complete waste. Parsons just played 36 games this season, 7.9 points per game, pretty much a bench player now. The Grizzlies are supposed to be rebuilding, but now they're stuck with this horrible deal. Miami Heat, Hassan Whiteside. The Heat met our expectations as a team, right? I mean, Hassan Whiteside was a bit less dominant than last year, so we got to pick him. But he was still a solid rebounder. His scoring went down. His defense was not as effective. The Heat need more from somebody they're considering their franchise player. Milwaukee Bucks, Eric Bledsoe. He was acquired from the Suns in a trade early in the season. He was a pretty good scorer, but he didn't establish chemistry with Giannis Antetokounmpo, and that led to kind of the scoring woes. The Bucks' scoring should have been better. Bledsoe's defense was also ineffective, especially during the playoffs. The Bucks need him to fit into that offense better, or else I would say their ceiling is about 50 wins. Minnesota Timberwolves, Andrew Wiggins. Their offense fell back a little bit with the addition of Jimmy Butler. He's reportedly very unhappy with his role on the team, but he didn't step up when Butler was sidelined with an injury. He didn't produce much during the playoffs. His attitude better not start taking over, because the T-Wolves have a lot of promise, and they might not be able to make it if they don't play as a cohesive unit. New Orleans Pelicans, Rajon Rondo. The Pelicans actually surpassed expectations. Anthony Davis grew into an MVP candidate throughout the season, but we're going to give it to Rajon Rondo, just because he's still in the NBA, and I'm not sure how. New York Knicks, Joakim Noah. He was limited to just 7 games, and he's still massively overpaid. He continues to underwhelm in New York. The team has to get rid of him, but I mean, once Kristaps went down, the entire New York team sucked. So give it to any of them. Oklahoma City Thunder, Carmelo Anthony. Carmelo joined Westbrook and Paul George to form a big three, but Melo was awful in this team system. He couldn't share the ball with either Westbrook or Paul George. He failed to average 20+ points for the first time ever in his career. His assist and rebound numbers also went down. That being said, he did shoot .404 from the field, and he's a .449 career shooter. So we're seeing the decline of Melo. Orlando Magic, Terrence Ross. He came over from the Raptors in the Serge Ibaka trade. He was expected to produce more with an expanded role, but he ended up being used as a bench player instead. He was limited to just 24 games. He didn't produce much scoring at all. He was supposed to be part of a rebuild, but that didn't happen. Philadelphia 76ers, Markelle Fultz. The 76ers finally trusted the process and broke out and made the playoffs. Markelle Fultz only played 14 games. He was a bench player. A lot of concern about his mental ability, mental stamina during a game, and could have had Jason Tatum all along. Phoenix Suns, Greg Monroe. He came over in the Eric Bledsoe trade. He was supposed to be a big part of the offense, but he only appeared in 20 games. He ultimately was waived and signed with the Celtics. It's just a big waste of the Suns' time. That Bledsoe trade is kind of looking pretty bad. Portland Trailblazers first round sweep. They finished third in the Western Conference with 49 wins. Damian Lillard absolutely took off, but then they were swept by the Pelicans in the first round of the playoffs. What a waste of a great regular season. The West gets tougher next year. Kind of like a come on, win now or when are you gonna win type of situation. Sacramento Kings, George Hill, he signed a $57 million deal with the Kings in the offseason. De'Aaron Fox is honestly a more productive point guard. Hill was traded to Cleveland in a 3-team trade. He didn't do much to help that offense or his original offense much at all, but at least they got out of that contract. San Antonio Spurs, Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi only played 9 games this season. He had a quad injury, but it was reported that there was friction with his management and other players on the team. The team begged Leonard to come back, but the Spurs barely missed the playoffs without Kawhi. A lot of people said that he could be playing with his injury. There's a lot of damage there that needs to be solved. Toronto Raptors, 59 wins for nothing. They won 59 games. They were the top seed in the East. They looked ready to finally dethrone LeBron. Cavaliers looked really vulnerable. And what did they do? They were swept. Yep, swept by the Cavaliers in round 2, while Cleveland barely beat the Pacers and the Celtics. Dwayne Casey was fired, even though he was the NBA Coach of the Year. That's interesting, isn't it? Utah Jazz, Jay Crowder. We don't really have many complaints here. They made the playoffs. They beat the Thunder. Gordon Hayward's gone, but they were still really good. The trade deadline pickup of Jay Crowder could have been better, so we're going to put him on the list. The strong defense wasn't there in the playoffs. Their three-point shooting was not as good either, but I think they should be better next year. Washington Wizards, one and done. They were 1 win away from the Eastern Conference Finals in 2017. They were expected to be a top 4 team in the East in 2018, but then John Wall was injured. Their roster depth was exposed. They finished with the 8th seed and were demolished by the Raptors in round 1. 1 step forward, now 2 steps back. Where do they go from here? Where does your favorite NBA team go from here? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you want to subscribe. Until next time, I'm Mike Cantalupo. Thanks for watching.